Dear brothers, happy Friday, boys. Let's have a little fun today. If there is a truism, big word on a Friday morning, that I have learned in this world, it is that distraction kills. Distraction is the enemy's tool, the devil's snare, if you will. It kind of lures you in with the pleasures of the world. What I mean by that is distractions like women, attention on the internet, booze, drugs, outlandishly delicious food, money, power, the works. Distraction with the worldly things that we as humans put so much praise into. Examples being, oh, you've slept with 50 women. You're so cool, bro. You have 1 million followers on Instagram. Like you're a god. You had 20 beers yesterday. Dang, bro, that's a crazy tolerance. You put down that whole fucking pizza? I can't do that. You made that much money last year? That's incredible, man. Who cares that some people got screwed over in that? That's awesome that you've just got like all this stuff. It's unreal. And those all sound like bigger things. How about small stuff that can lead into some of those? You spent 6 hours on Instagram just scrolling, not gaining anything from it, but just scrolling, trying to get the next dopamine hit that makes you laugh. You got bored last night, smoked a metric ton of weed until you felt numb, and then the rest of the night just dwindled away into nothing. Found yourself with another spare 5 minutes, so you threw on some porn, jacked off. All of those things. Meanwhile, all of those above examples result mostly in a hollowness of your soul. And all of you know that feeling of hollowness if you've done any of the above. You know that you feel low, shallow, nothing special going on, because you gain nothing from all of those things. But the pleasure that you get from them allows you to be numb to the world, numb to your goals, averse to doing anything worthwhile. Even when you find yourself quote unquote successful, whatever that means, you're still finding ways to thwart yourself at every turn, because that's easier than doing the action that sits in the back of your mind waiting to be unleashed. I have said it 1,000 times on here about that concept of pushing off what needs to be done. The idea of resistance that Stephen Pressfield talks about. And maybe you're pushing off writing a book that needs to be written. Maybe it's weight that you need to take off, diet changes that you need to make. Maybe it's giving up booze. Maybe it's the fact that you're not spending enough time with your kids because you're too busy working constantly, and making $1 just means more to you. At least you convince yourself of that. Maybe you haven't been intimate with your wife in months, so you just choose hours of porn to fill that need. It is all distraction, fellas. And in my personal humble opinion, it's a distraction from goodness and from God's calling on our lives. Simple as that. The more distracted by the pleasures of the world that we are, the less successful we're going to be in contributing to society in any meaningful way and getting closer with our Creator. You might disagree with that idea. You might not like the concept of that idea. But I bet you if you take the time, sit down, go look in the mirror, write some thoughts down, and you really reflect on your life, you're going to find shallowness in your soul that is so painful and so empty that you're not going to be able to help but agree with my words. And I know all of you listening have felt that hollowness. And I know that, in part, I know that because that feeling is one that I've lived with for years. chasing all of the distractions of the world, hoping that they give me another dopamine hit, and praying that they would occupy my mind just for a little bit longer, but knowing deep down that those distractions were keeping me from my work. Even more than that, I always knew that my thoughts were a little tainted. They were dark, they were evil, they were dishonorable. And the hard thing is that I still loved them. And it was so hard to break free from those distractions that just wanted to claw at me. And, then you'd feel guilty about them, and then you go back to them. It's just like this terrible cycle. But as always, no one in my adult life has shown me more of this than the great C.S. Lewis. You guys are probably tired of me talking about him, but let me tell you something. The guy was a genius, and there's really no other way to put it. So he wrote a book, a fiction called The Screwtape Letters. For those of you who have never read it, go to the bookstore or go to Amazon when this episode is done, buy the book and read it over the next couple of weeks. It's very small, but your mind will be mush by the time you've finished that book. But the clarity that it brings about the evil that exists in the world and its effect on you is second to none. It's brilliant. So Screwtape is a devil and a master tempter from hell who is educating his nephew Wormwood on how to tempt a man who in the book is called the Patient. And in the excerpt I'm about to read you guys, Screwtape speaks about the best way of tempting someone who is actively welcoming any distraction that can keep him from having to think about his current life. And he explains to Wormwood that it doesn't require a lot of effort to waste a man's life with distractions. So Screwtape says the following. A few weeks ago, you had to tempt him to unreality and inattention in his prayers. But now you will find him opening his arms to you and almost begging you to distract his purpose and benumb his heart. He will want his prayers to be unreal, for he will dread nothing so much as effective contact with the enemy, i.e. God. His aim will be to let sleeping worms lie. He continues about a paragraph later. You will say that these are very small sins, and doubtless, like all young tempters, you are anxious to be able to report spectacular wickedness. But do remember, the only thing that matters is the extent to which you separate the man from the enemy, i.e. God. It does not matter how small the sins are, provided that their cumulative effect is to edge the man away from the light and out into the nothing. End quote. So you see, what Lewis so well describes here is that it is not the individual distractions or sins themselves that lead the man astray. It's the revisiting of them time and time again. The cumulative effect results in a man who is actively avoiding the light. That light being God's calling on their lives, God himself. And instead, actively looking out into the nothing. A nothing which keeps a man in chains that the devil convinced him to put himself into. Chains made up of all of the pleasures that he's unwilling to let go of. Think of the times in your own life when you found some kind of pleasure. I've mentioned porn a few times already, so we'll use that as an easy example. You pull something up, watch it, do your thing. A little bit later on, you watch something else. It felt a lot easier the second, third time around. Then the next day you figured, why not start my day with that? Felt good when I did it. I've got like this urge to start it again. I'll start my day with it. Later on, you've got a little break when your roommate leaves, and up goes the computer and you do it again. You tell yourself in your mind, just a quick one. I've got time. I can do it right now. Meanwhile, you've now allowed that one moment of pleasure to throw you into this abyss where your time is being thrown away for what? 2 minutes of you in your hand and that deep, hollow feeling that you get afterwards? And all of you listening to this know exactly what I mean. I'll refer back to another quote from my guy CS. If we let ourselves, we shall always be waiting for some distraction or other to end before we can really get down to our work. The only people who achieve much are those who want knowledge so badly that they seek it while the conditions are still unfavorable. Favorable conditions never come. End quote. Those words reverberate through my brain. We will always put off what needs to be done. I'll get to my schoolwork or to my writing or to hanging out with my kids when the distraction is finally over. A distraction that we're choosing to have. We're putting off what we should be doing. Meanwhile, we are capable of ridding ourselves of that distraction now. But the devil, that tempter, just keeps whispering in our ear, telling us that it's okay. Remember, the devil can't stop God's calling on your life, but he can blind you to it. He can put smoke and mirrors in front of you and make you not see it. But he can't stop that calling. Your choice is to get away, to avoid that calling. And there has to be no more of that, fellas. Kill the distractions today. When you feel the want to do something you know is distracting, or something that you know is not building yourself up to be the heroic man you need to be. We've used that term a lot in the last few episodes. Say no to it. Tell it that you are stronger. Tell it you have a calling by God himself, and nothing trumps that. Pull out your sword and cleave the distraction in half. Let it bleed there, and make sure that all of its hellish little friends know that you're not to be messed with. You have a divine calling to be a worthy man. And fellas, distractions have no place in a worthy man's life. I love all of you. God bless. Be strong. Let's get after it today, boys. Have an awesome weekend.